Good morning! Well, week one is over and done and dusted. Been a bit of a strange week, really. One thing I'm certainly finding over the last couple of trips is travelling all this distance and the 7-hour time difference. It's not quite as easy as it used to be as a younger man 16 years ago. And I suppose it doesn't help having the typical Thai bed, which is basically a block of concrete wrapped in a sheet. Yes, this is what they like to sell over here, is rock hard beds. So I'm actually on Thai time now. The body clock has eventually caught up after about 6 days. So perhaps the future rounds of golf might be a little bit better. But Phuket is not Pattaya. It's not Lam Shabang. It's not Siam Rolling Hills, Siam Waterside, Bang Pakong Riverside, Burra Pa, and all the other courses. The courses here on Phuket are quite a bit narrower, with an awful lot more water. An awful lot more water. Let's run down through the courses, shall we? Loch Palm's on the short side, and the reason it's on the short side is they had to do a redesign. The 10th, instead of going down the hill and a little kink to the left, used to go hard up to the right. The 17th was not the par 3. The 17th used to go up to the same location as a par 4, and then 18 would come down the hill more or less to where I'd tee off at the moment on 18, and then take a dogleg left. The 17th green was very close to the boundary of the golf course, and they had golf balls going out the golf course, so they had to do a redesign, and that's why it's shorter. It's a fun little course, but it's tight and wet, and the toilets behind the 4th green, well, I'd give it a few days before you go in that one. But you can make a good score on it, and I did. The last round I played there on the last trip, which was 2.5 years ago now, I had a 69, and I'll put a link to it in the description if you haven't actually seen that 69, just to show you that it is possible to play good golf. Phuket Country Club, it's a quirky course because you hardly use your driver around it. But it was in terrible condition. It was very, very soft, a lot of worm casts everywhere. Fairways hadn't been cut. It was too soft to get machinery on the fairways. It didn't play very nicely at all, and I had a poor caddy in the respect of looking after the customer. See, when they drive to a tee box, they'll normally park in the shade. When they drive down the cart path, they will normally park in the shade. They'll make sure you've got your umbrella. I had a caddy who was parking in full sun. I had to get out the cart and walk backwards 20 or 30 yards to find some shade. And then when the green was clearing and it was time to go out into the fairway, she'd grab my umbrella, tuck it under her arm, and she was gone. And I'm thinking, I want this. I want my damned umbrella, not you. It's no use under your arm. So you do get the 1 in 100 caddy who, quite frankly, doesn't care if you're alive or dead, just so long as you get round the golf course quickly and give her a tip. Well, she did get a tip, obviously, but it wasn't the same tip that the other caddies get, I can assure you of that. Where did I go next? Laguna. Laguna's probably the closest course to the golf courses at Pattaya, in that there's certainly water, there's certainly a hell of a lot of bunkers, but there is a bit of width to it. Even though I didn't play very well because I was cooked and still very tired, jet-lagged wise, it's got some width. It is a fairer golf course. And I think that's what makes it the best golf course on the island. Then we went off island, we went up the coast to Aquella. Fortunately, you can only see the sea from one green. Water on 17 holes, sometimes both sides of the hole. I didn't strike the ball well, so bad luck Simon. Except for, strangely, I got 2 twos. This is the odd thing at the moment, is I'm hitting some really good shots and then complete disaster. That's a lot down to concentration, energy. But the greens were perfect. You might not be able to see it on the video. You'd have to be there and see it with your own 2 eyes. When you walk on the green, you think, wow, this is perfect. There isn't a single blade of grass out of place. This is fantastic. The board on the first tee said they were 9.2 on the stimp meter, and they just weren't. I don't know what stimp meter they use, but I would say that they were more of a 6.5 to 7, which was very confusing. They looked fast, they looked fantastic, and then you putted and you got halfway there. And whether the caddy was slightly at error, of course if you underhit your putt, it's never going to stay on line, is it? So there's a little bit of caddy at error, I think, with the line, a little bit of Simon at error with not hitting it hard enough, and probably quite a bit of Simon. Perhaps my eyes weren't directly over the ball that day, but whatever the combination was, and it was probably mostly me, we couldn't get the ball in the hole. And then it was back to Loch Palm. What happens to me out here is I get overheated. Some people say, oh, it's the water, or it's the ice in your drink, or it's the food. Well, I eat very well. I really do eat very well out here, and I'm very careful about what I do. The ice isn't a problem, it's all properly treated. Water isn't a problem because you're drinking it out of a bottle anyway. What happens is I get overheated, and when you get overheated, you get the headache, nice, but it also overheats the body, which means that your digestive tract is basically turned to liquid. So we started off on 1 and I was okay. We get to 2, stood in the second fairway, and it all starts churning and bubbling, and you think, oh my word, something is over the horizon in my future. Third wasn't too clever. Get to the 4th tee and it was, oh my goodness, can I actually play this hole or not? Hit the tee shot, well left. We get down to the green and I'm thinking, do I go? Can I hang on? Have I got enough time? And I chipped and basically abandoned the hole. There's a toilet just behind the 4th tee, 4th green, sorry. I knew that was there. And it was straight in, and I was, well, let's not paint a picture, shall we? Now the caddy said the next few holes were just junk, which isn't surprising. Caddy said to me, you need to concentrate. And I was concentrating. I was concentrating very hard on not crapping myself, basically. Nothing else happened till we got back to the clubhouse, and I had more problems there. Got back to the hotel here, went straight to the pharmacy across the road, and got some Imodium, or basically a chemical cork. So scoring not very good, although I keep throwing in birdies and a long string of pars, and the back 9 at Loch Palm I believe was 2 over, which all things considered wasn't that bad. So I've got 2 weeks to go, let's see what's coming up in 2 weeks. Back again. Right, so what does next week look like? Well, it's 5 rounds of golf. I'm going to Mission Hills, which has got some lovely views at the far end of the golf course. Then we are off to Red Mountain, which is a real tough golf course, mountainous. From about the 12th green upwards, the cart path is going up at 40 degrees as you climb higher and higher and higher. Then you come down on 17, and this camera will not do it justice. You've just got to be here to see it. It's like, I think the hole's roughly about 145, 155 yards, something of that order. But the green is a fair bit lower. It's like somebody who's 7'6" looking at their feet. It's just straight down like that. It's an amazing hole. As I say, the camera won't do it justice. You've got to come here and see it for your own eyes just to see how bizarre a hole it is. Very difficult, fast, undulating greens. Then we're off to, hang on, I can't read this, I got the wrong glasses off. So Mission Hills, Red Mountain, then we're back off to Laguna. So I will play the blue tees this time. That means that some of the hazards will be further away from the tee box and less of an issue, hopefully. Then we're going to Catatong, which is a long way up country. It's an 8:30 pickup for an 11:30 tee. It's out in the middle of nowhere. I'm told it's good. I'm also told it's a bit quirky in places. A bit like myself, really. And then we're back at Aquella for my second and final round, and hopefully I will putt better and stay out of the water. Bit of housekeeping. Outside the golf course you will find people selling golf balls. So I bought a pack of 10 Pro V1s, probably come out of lakes and out of the jungle. It cost me 100 baht, so that is 23 pence a ball, which is ideal for somebody who's probably going to drown a few golf balls over the next week. And financially, I always kind of like estimate what my day-to-day expenses are going to be, and I always think, right, inflation, I need to add some more on from the last trip. But Phuket is the most expensive resort, and I've just about underestimated. What I would normally do is say, right, I want £70 a day, and I would normally spend under that £70 a day. At the moment I'm spending over the £70 a day, simply because food and drink and bits and pieces are more expensive. The other thing that's hurting me is Rachel Reeves and her budget. Turns out she wasn't an economist at the Bank of England, she was in fact the tea lady. And the exchange rate from prior to the budget to now, and it is still falling, it's gone down about 8 to 8.5%. So if you've got £1,000 of spending money and you're losing 8.5% of that thanks to the exchange rate tanking, it gets a bit painful. And it's still going down, unfortunately. The strange thing is, in November, normally the exchange rate starts going up. So every time I go out and change £100, I get a bit more for it, and a bit more, and a bit more. Because the pound is a reserve currency here in Thailand, and they like it, and they're quite happy to pay a lot of money for it. At the moment it's going down, which basically says we don't really want it, not with that budget. So thanks, Rachel. I suggest you get back to making the tea and vacate your post, because you're bloody useless. Anyway, I will see you next week. Ta-ra.